needs to be covered in 10 weeks because the longest term this calendar year is only going to be 10 weeks.
Right.
So it's going to be a pressure to the parents, because the parents are supposed also to advise the children that they have to be in school. The teachers also have a challenge to ensure that they have covered the syllabus. The students feel that there's pressure on them because it's a crash program that we need to cover a lot within a short time. So the consideration perhaps would be for the candidate classes, maybe some topics would have been removed so that when it comes to the examination setting, they cover areas that they know would have been covered within that particular time. Because now testing the entire syllabus will be a challenge. Although the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Professor George Magoha, mentioned that some areas won't be tested, but it was not particular which areas. So whether it was class 7 or class 8, so he wasn't particular on that. But let's hope that this examination will be fair to the students.
Right. Of course, we'll be talking about matters of examination. 5, I understand that there's going to be 5 national examinations during this year.
Exactly.
You'll be telling me more about that as well, and how prepared our students, and of course, whether if it's written out and resonates as well, its practicality in terms of delivery of examination itself,
Very true.
and how the results are going to be. But of course, coming back to matters about this term, we are in term 3, I understand.
Yeah, term 3, the 2021 school calendar.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you feel like its timing now is appropriate?
The timing is not appropriate, but now the government had this staggered term so that they can be able to return the school calendar into normalcy. And that's why I said by telling you that this is unprecedented difficult times, because traditionally January is term 1, now we are in term 3. So teachers, even parents, are psychologically destabilized, because now this is a very new thing to them. Yeah, and it's not only new, not only to their minds, but also with regard to what is supposed to be covered within this time. It's really, really challenging to the teachers and the students as well. Yeah.
And we are supposed to be having 4 terms in this year.
Exactly.
Starting with now, and then it's 9 weeks you mentioned.
Yes.
With the 3rd term.
Yeah.
We get to the 1st term of 2022, right?
Yeah, 2022.
And you know, looking at it, and from we who do not understand matters about education, so from the way you guys understand it, because it's your profession, we feel like you know, it's too much and it's hectic. Don't you think so? With the 4 terms.
It is too much and hectic. The only reprieve is that we are going to have a 7 weeks holiday, because this term is going to end on the 4th of March. And then we shall have the holiday before we begin the next school calendar from the 5th of March to the 24th of April. So that duration is long enough.
Right.
Yeah, for the students to rest.
Right.
But then, now when we begin the other calendar year of 2022, it's going again to be a very constrained term, which will be very, very challenging to the students.
Right. By now, Mwalimu, do you feel like the stakeholders within the education sector, talking about the parents and the teachers themselves, without even leaving aside the students, are supposed to have prepared their minds, knowing that we are headed into a tough year, like in the education sector in 2022?
Yeah, they ought to have been prepared, because now, looking at what happened in the year 2021, when the government announced that they have come up with a program to ensure that within 2 years, the school calendar resumes to normalcy, then everyone was to be prepared. But, you know, being prepared for a challenge is not an easy thing, and especially with a psychological challenge. So you can be prepared by the heart, but then when it comes to practicality, it becomes now the challenge. Yes, you know it, but then now when you get into the real gist, it becomes a very big challenge.
All right.
Yeah.
True. Ladies and gentlemen, what we are talking here, together with Mwalimu Miss Elisha Mwango from Mikindani Royal Comprehensive School, the county of Mombasa, is what is happening currently in our schools. The schools are up and running. This is the 2nd day of the 3rd term of 2022. 1. And of course, this same year of 2022 will have the first, second, and the third term. So which means going forward during this year, there are going to be 4 terms up and running in the education sector. And that is quite a big one, talking about how our students are supposed to be prepared in terms of their education. Remember, that is what we are discussing. And of course, we would like also to engage you into our program and our discussion this morning. What do you feel about the education sector? Whether if you're watching us and you are part and parcel of the education sector as well, what do you think about this mounting pressure over the education sector to our students? Talk to us. The number is below your screen. Remember as well, we'd like, right now though, we want to take a short break here. When we come back, we'll be digging deeper into matters about, the junior secondary school. This is quite a matter that has been quite a concern. It has sparked a lot of debate. Recently, there was that head teachers meeting, annual delegates meeting, and we now will have to look at that as well together with Mwalimu here to try and understand what does it mean when we are talking about junior secondary, and some of these issues that have been raised out of it, how can we solve them, and going forward, what can we anticipate in terms of the CBC in itself. Right now though, we are taking a short break as we also take some bit of a hot cup of tea here in Mikindani Royal Comprehensive School. Don't go too far. Right, welcome back now to the second part of our morning discussion, coming to you live from Mikindani Royal Comprehensive School here in Mombasa County, together with Mwalimu Elisha Mwango, quite an experienced teacher and quite a very key stakeholders in matters about education, simply because he holds a position within the Kenya Private School Association here in Jomvu Sub-County. And we have come here to engage him in matters about the education calendar, looking into how we have just gotten into the 2022. Schools have just been open currently, and what can we look forward to in terms of the education calendar, and trying also to try and unmount the pressure that has been there within our schools, and that is what we are discussing this morning here. If you're watching us on Facebook as well, you can go to our comment section, share your comments as well concerning our topic of discussion. Those who are watching us via the TV set, you can do so also on the number below your screen. Share your comments, and I'll be looking at your comments in just a bit. But now, Mwalimu, welcome back to the second part of the show.
Thank you.
And moving forward in matters about the CBC.
Yeah.
And the education sector, if I may use this word, is undergoing a bit of revolution, and we are slowly understanding there's some new things cropping up. And this new thing that we want to discuss right now, that of course has sparked a lot of debate, is what it's called the junior secondary.
Exactly.
And we are wondering, those of you who did the 844 system, and currently now we have the new curriculum here through the CBC, has introduced the junior secondary. What is it in a layman language?
Okay, well, the junior secondary is not a new thing in Kenya. Before the 844 curriculum, there was junior secondary where students would do a national examination in Form 2, and then they would decide whether they would continue up to Form 6 or they would exit at junior secondary. So they would do what was called the Kenya Junior Secondary Education Examination. But this one is a little bit different, given that it is starting with the grade 7.
Right.
Yeah, so the standard 6 that we have, the grade 5 that we have at this term, in April 25th, they will be transiting into grade 6.
Right.
Now that will be the end of their primary cycle. Now come next year, now they will, instead of them being standard 7, if it will be the 844 curriculum, now they will be starting their secondary education, which is the junior secondary, which is grade 7, grade 8, and grade 9. Whereby grade 9 would be the current Form 1.
Right.
Yeah, so it is a 3 years, section of their secondary education.
True. Before even we understand more concerning the junior secondary, and I love how you've explained to us, you've mentioned the current class 6 will get into grade 7.
Yeah.
Will there be an examination transition there?
No, the current grade 5. The current grade 5,
right.
yeah, will get into grade 6 in April when we begin the 2022 calendar year, academic calendar. there will be a national examination
For the grade
for the grade 6.
Right.
Yeah, which will, it's not going to be the determiner or that like an entry examination to the junior secondary,
Right.
but it will be a national test, which is cumulatively what they have been doing from grade 3, because they have been doing grade 3 national test, grade 4, 5, and 6. So this grade 6 examination that they will do, it will be a cumulative test, which they will be doing to now mark the end of their primary cycle, but not a determiner to the entry to the junior secondary, because currently the competence-based curriculum that is not exam oriented. It encourages competences to be developed among the learners, but then there is 100% transition. So that examination is purely to mark the end of their primary cycle.
Yeah, before they join the junior.
Before they join the junior secondary.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had picked on the junior secondary part of it.
Yes.
Because there was quite a number of questions that were being asked on how practical is it going to be, whether if we have the necessary resources, who is supposed to teach this junior secondary? Is it the primary school teachers or the secondary school teachers?
Yes.
Also looking into the matter as well. Is it said that are they going to be doing content that, of course, is resonates with class 6 and 7, or are they going to do secondary school content?
With regard to the content, there has been, if you examine the content of the competence-based curriculum, there has been a rearrangement of the content. There is some content which ideally, according in the 844 system, was taught in high school, and has been brought to primary. For instance, now if you look at the content of the grade 4, grade 5, and I think grade 3, there is some content which ideally was taught in grade 5 or in grade 7. For instance, in grade 5, they're already learning some content like in science, respiratory system. They've been learning about the human health, which was, some part of it was a content like this part about adolescent changes, which ideally was starting in class 6. But at the moment, they are taught in class 5. Yeah. So there's a rearrangement. So there's a likelihood. I'm yet to see the junior secondary education curriculum, but from what I have seen with the grade 4, grade 5 curriculum, definitely there is content which will be taught in grade 7, which was taught in Form 1, which was taught in class 8 in the 844 system. So it's a rearrangement and realignment of the content, but it remains the same. Exactly.
Right. And so, in a nutshell, you're telling me that the junior secondary school content will be domicile of secondary school content.
Exactly. The junior secondary, because idea that's a secondary school. Yeah, and that's why it's distinct from the primary. So when, in fact, from the arrangement with the government, we will have schools which will be simply junior secondary schools as standalone. We shall,
standalone?
Yes. The government allowed that. We can also have a primary school which also has a junior secondary, and we'll also have some secondary schools which also have junior secondary. And then, but we may have a scenario where we have a school which is simply a junior secondary school, which will be only taking the grade 6 as they transit to grade 7, 8, and 9. Then maybe from there they go to the senior secondary. Yeah.
And is there a role that primary schools have in this transition to junior secondary school?
The role that the primary school have is simply the transitional process, administering the national grade 6 examination. But the junior secondary will be manned and taught by teachers who are trained to be high school teachers. Yes, according to what the Minister of Education said and the Teacher Service Commission. Although there has been discussions here and there, some stakeholders propose that why don't we have the primary school teachers teach the junior secondary? On the other hand, other stakeholders, such as the Minister of Education and the Teacher Service Commission, says, well, this is secondary school, so why should we have a primary school teacher teach junior secondary.
And how do you think it should be?
What should happen, I propose as a professional teacher, anyone who did, even if he's teaching primary, but trained as a high school teacher, should also be given that opportunity to teach
right.
in secondary school. Because, you know, if you look at the age group of these learners who are joining junior secondary, they are the grade 7, they are the grade 8, the class 8 that we have in the current system that we are facing out.
Right.
So they are still small kids who require pedagogical approaches of a learner at that particular level.
Right.
But of course, there's that you know, concept of being a high school, and therefore the emphasis should be teachers who are also trained to be able to achieve objectives meant for a high school student.
Right. And Mwalimu, from what I see and how I've understood this whole aspect here, I think it's going to be quite a headache, you know, looking into how we're going to transition from primary to junior secondary.
Yes.
Do you feel things are going to be tough going forward in the education sector, and how long will it take us to adjust to this?
Things are going to be tough. You are very right. First, infrastructure, because the schools need to be equipped with infrastructure that befits a secondary school.
Right.
And looking at the situation that we have in the country, in as much as the government said it was going to put up 10,000 classrooms, but still those 10,000 classrooms are not enough, because currently we already have schools which are congested. And from the proposition that the CS for Education was saying, that these secondary schools in the public schools will not be domiciled in the primary, that means they have to be in secondary schools, or maybe a primary school which has a space
right.
for the junior secondary classrooms to be built. So looking at that, especially in an urban setup like Mombasa, is going to be a very big challenge, because most of the schools do not have adequate space for more classrooms to be built.
Right.
Yeah, so it's going to be a challenge with regard to the infrastructure. Number two, there may also going to be a challenge, because like what we experienced with the introduction of the CBC,
right.
some book publishers had not yet even published the books about 2 to 3 months when the curriculum started, because the books have to be approved and what have you. Yeah.
And Mwalimu, this kind of information that you're telling me here currently, do
Yes.
you feel like parents have a clue on whatever is happening, or they are in the dark?
Not only the parents, even some teachers, and even some very important stakeholders are not aware of what is happening, because these are new things that's being rolled out. So to the parents, I can assure you, most of them are clueless on what is happening in the education sector, especially with regard to the junior secondary.
So which means it's going to have some bit of a problem in terms of its practicality and parent involvement in this.
So much problem, because like some parents are likening it with what was happening with the junior secondary before the introduction of the 844 system. But this one is a new game altogether. So the challenge has been educating the parents and the stakeholders in general on what is the CBC. But the challenge is they are yet to agree, because there are certain things they are yet to agree, like on the issue of human resource,
right.
like the issue of infrastructure, like on the issue of where exactly should it be domiciled. So we are still haggling here and there as stakeholders, but what I would advise the Minister of Education, let them make it very clear to the parents so that they don't get confused, because come January 2023, when we shall be beginning the 2023 academic calendar, there may be a lot of challenge. But I believe that this year the education sector is going to have a sitting down with the stakeholders and ensure that everybody is aware what is the junior secondary is all about, and even the roles the parents are supposed to play. Because you've seen with the CBC, when parents were engaged, because there's that pillar of parental empowerment and engagement, when parents were told you are supposed to do this to help the child learn, some of them were confused, and that's why you had some even went to court to challenge the system. So to avoid a replica of what was happening with the grade 4-5 parents, let the Minister of Education inform all the stakeholders of their responsibilities and roles regarding the junior secondary education.
Right. And talking about the timeline now, you've mentioned to me that in 2023, this thing is supposed to be rolled out, the junior secondary.
Yes.
Do you think it's too fast and we are rushing this at all? And whether if we should do some bit of piloting exercise on the same?
You see, the piloting, that is a process which is supposed to be done before the massive rollout of the curriculum. But the curriculum was already massive rollout, so there's nothing like piloting anymore. Now it has, the train left the station, as Professor Magoha likes saying. Because now
we're
we're
not going to get back.
Yeah, because already we have the grade 5, they are trying to grade 6, and they come next year, which the time is beginning on the 23rd of January, the students need to join secondary school.
Right.
Yeah. So there's nothing like piloting, so because it's already national-wide. So it has to proceed.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk this in also in a different angle about those school proprietors, particularly the private schools.
Yes.
And it's also quite a challenge. And with internet now, they're scratching their heads concerning how they're going to create more space and more classrooms to accommodate the secondary.
Exactly.
How is it hard for you guys?
It's not a big challenge with the private schools, especially those that have adequate space. Because if you have adequate, for instance now, if you have class 7, class 8, you're converting those classrooms into secondary school, and then you have an additional one classroom.
Right.
Yeah. So if you have that space, then you're good to go. The challenge is if you don't have that space. Another challenge is because this one is a new section, all schools are supposed to register that section with the Ministry of Education.
Right.
It's not a matter of just because...
So it has its own registration?
It has its own... You have to register. For instance, now, if you have a registration certificate for the 844 system, so if you want to have the junior secondary, then you have to register your school that it carries from kindergarten, then the primary cycle, and the junior secondary.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a matter of complying with the policy. Because if you don't register it, it means that you cannot be allowed to have the junior secondary in your institution. Yeah.
Right. And if we then have the junior secondary, what is left of the current secondary schools? Will we gonna see, like, for instance, we'll have only from 3s and 4s or what?
Yeah, we're going to only have from 2, 3, and 4. But there's a looming big problem, because now come the year 2023, we are going to have double intake for the Form 1, because we have this one for the competence-based curriculum joining the junior secondary, and then we have the 844 joining secondary, because those who will be completing December this year, because the current standard 7 of the 844 are sitting their KCP examination in November of this year. So next year they will also be joining Form 1 of the 844. Then we have the grade 6 who will be joining now grade 7, which is like Form 1 of the new curriculum. So there are going to be a challenge with regard to infrastructure, where we are going to absorb them.
Right.
So human resource and the physical infrastructure is going to give all the stakeholders a very big challenge.
Right. And even though we are waiting to cross the bridge when we get there,
yes,
how do you feel we should prepare ourselves with this whole issue?
The preparation is in many facets. One, the teachers, they need to be prepared. The parents need to be prepared. And even the government needs to be prepared. Because when these challenges come, which of course they will come, because when we shall have a huge number of students who have completed the grade 6, and we have no space to keep them, what do? We have to prepare with regard to infrastructure. Number 2, the human resource. Because currently we have a big shortage of around 10,000 teachers in private school deficit, and the high school also there's a very big deficit of teachers. So the government needs to be prepared to employ more teachers. The same with the private schools. They also need to be prepared to ensure that they get enough infrastructure, and they also get teachers who will be able to teach in the junior secondary. And of course that one has financial connotation. So it's going to be a challenge with regard to having everything in place.
Right. As we finish on junior secondary school matter and how it's becoming a headache here in the country, yes, we've already rolled out the CBC and we are set to make it happen in 2023.
Yes.
And now currently we are in the electioneering period.
Exactly.
And we're looking forward to a new government. Do you foresee a situation like maybe the guys who are going to form the government next year can as well as think otherwise and say, you know, we need to scrap this thing off and continue the way we used to?
What I would advise as a professional teacher is when the new dispensation comes in, they should look for ways of improving how to implement the curriculum. But phasing it out, one, it will be a very big loss to the government and a big confusion to the whole entire education sector.
Right.
So with the new government, let them just check where has been the loopholes, where has been the gaps. So they engage all the stakeholders, because the current challenge that we've been facing since the inception of the new curriculum has been stakeholder engagement. That has been the greatest challenge. That's why, because when other people are not well informed, then a lot of disinformation will be there, because if you leave a gap for certain information, others will come into field. So what my advice is, the new government that will come, let them find ways of engaging all the stakeholders so that we have this curriculum in place. Yeah.
Right. Very true. Quite some bit of thoughts there, and some bit of sentiments from my guest, Mr. Elisha Mwango, who is the current principal here at Mikindani Royal Comprehensive School, and we are coming to you live from here. And as you can see, he has some bit of thoughts concerning matters about education. We're done looking at the junior secondary school. Now when we come back, because we are right now going to take another short break here, when we come back, we'll be looking at another matter that pertains to the parents. And you know, schools have been opened, and it's quite a challenge in terms of, you know, purchasing school items, school fees, burdens here, about financial constraints. We still have COVID-19. What needs to be done and what can we look forward to also? That is another matter that we'll be coming to look into in our third part of the discussion this morning. But right now, though, allow me to take a short break. Remember, as we are taking a short break, remember also we are coming to you live from Mikindani Comprehensive School here in Mombasa. Keep your comments coming on Facebook Live on the comment section. You can share that as well on your TV set. There's that number below your screen. Move to all our social media platforms. Of course, I'll be sampling your views as we get along. We have still a lot to discuss here together with Mwalimu, so don't go too far.
You find that traditionally the parents were used to having 4 weeks or maybe 5 weeks to prepare for their children in readiness for reopening. But now you find that a parent, you close in a span of 1 week, you're supposed to look for fees, you're supposed to start buying new books, you're supposed to, get uniform for the children. So that duration is too short for preparing your child in readiness for reopening. And within that duration, sometimes also the book publishers or the uniform centers, they hike the prices of those items. Right. So it becomes a challenge transiting from one term to the next, because the holiday is very, very short. Yeah.
And furthermore, we are from Christmas.
Yes. In fact, at the moment, this is the biggest challenge for most parents, because some have traveled the countryside, their rural homes, at least to see their kids and kids. But now, the school is reopening in 1 week's, duration. So it becomes a very big challenge. That's why, in fact, in many schools, I've done a spot check in many schools here in Mombasa. The turnout for the yesterday and today has been very low.
Right. And of course, Mwalimu, during the time at which we were here and we spoke to you, there's a lot was happening within our schools.
Yeah.
Talking about the issue of the increased arson attacks. And you mentioned to me the pressure which we are giving these students is what is prompting them to behave that kind of way. And now that we are still having this pressure, and it's going to be even more, are we likely to see more of whatever is happening?
Yeah, there's a likelihood of that happening. But what I want to advise the students, that it's not anyone's wish. We don't wish to do that. The government is not wishing to subject them to this kind of pressure. So let them understand life is about changes. And when a change comes, it's good to adapt to that particular of change, rather than, finding another negative way of ventilating their anger and their dissatisfaction, because you realize that if they burn down these schools, then it's their parents again who are supposed to pay so that those schools are rebuilt. So the best thing for them to do is to adapt to the situation, because it's all this year, and come next year things will resume to normals. But it is true, it's going to subject them to a lot of pressure.
Right, very true. Now, Mwalimu, wrapping it up. Of of course, we are done looking at whatever we wanted to speak to you.
Yeah.
But I want you to speak also to your fellow teachers and directors of schools during this particular time. What can you say as we finish?
Well, what I want to ask the teachers, they should brace up for the tough time that they are subjected to. They are professional teachers, so they should adapt to the situation and ensure they prepare the candidates and all the students for the examination. For those that are transiting to the next class, the same thing should happen. So they should be prepared to prepare the candidates psychologically and also in the syllabus coverage.
Right.
When it comes to the school proprietors, when it comes to all the stakeholders, they should also play a very significant role in ensuring that they advise the students, they advise, the teachers and also the ministry where necessary. If there's any input that someone has with regard of making the education system improve, let whoever has an idea put it forward, because together we shall move. But if we remain divided, we shall fall.
We shall fall. True. Right. I want you, Mwalimu, also to welcome people at Royal Mikindani Comprehensive School. Tell them about the school itself, where is it found, and many more.
Well, Mikindani Royal Comprehensive School is found in Mombasa County, Jomvu Sub-County. We are situated at Mikindani along the Kwashe Road, and we are a school running all the way from kindergarten, primary, high school, and even a college, which we do it on part-time basis. The college is called the Royal Elite Mombasa College. So we've been running from the year 2000 until now. So we are really a school with a lot of reputation. We've churned out students who have become very important people in the society. So we are a very good school. We also have a sister school in Jomvu Royal Comprehensive School that we opened its doors in the year 2008. It's also doing well, running all the way from kindergarten, primary, up to high school.
Right.
So Mikindani Royal Comprehensive School is a hub of excellence.
Definitely. A hub of excellence. I love that. Thank you so much, Mwalimu. And we do appreciate your time, and we of course appreciate your hospitality here.
Thank you.
And we are so happy to be here as well with our entire crew. And definitely, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see now, we are done talking to Mr. Mwalimu here, Elisha Mwango. Remember also, I want to engage a couple of students concerning how they feel about these years, and of course the education, how, whether if they are prepared or not. We'll be speaking to them about different matters just to get a handful experience about them and to understand more on that. But we are now taking another short break here. We'll be coming back in a moment with the students. Don't go too far.